Hey, Sabrina here and welcome back to another video. Thank you so much for swinging by to watch this video and see what it is all about. If you don't know, my name is Sabrina and I invest full-time in property, and I started this YouTube channel to be able to inform you and help you make sound decisions around investing in property, whether you decide to do it full-time, part-time, on the side, however you decide to do it, but making sound decisions in property investment by giving you key information to help you make the right decisions. Property due diligence is research. All it is doing research before purchasing an investment property. Now, the type of research that you do or the type of property due diligence that you carry out will differ depending on the type of strategy that you're doing. So if you're doing buy-to-lets or serviced accommodation or buy-to-sell, the research that you carry out will be slightly different, although the principle is still the same. So today I'm going to focus this property due diligence around purchasing a property and finding out the end value of a property, which you would do if you're going to do the buy to sell model or a BRRR, which is buy, renovate, rent and then refinance. And the reason, although you're going to let it out and would do research around what rental income you could get, you would still need to understand the end value of that property, because that's how you get your money back. And if you want to know a little bit more about how that all works, I've done a video on that here called Buy, Renovate, Refinance. The first property I ever done doing that when I came to live here in South Wales. So you can watch that video and check that out and let me know what you think down below. So if any property that you're purchasing, you really want to understand what is that property going to be worth once you've spent all your money and done it up in good condition. So how do we do that? How do we find out what that number is? The first thing you really want to do is go online onto the property protocols and go and see what has sold on that road, like for like, in that area. So you can use Rightmove or you can use Land Registry, where there's an option for you to go and click a tab and put in the postcode, and that exact road will come up and you'll be able to see what properties have sold for on that road. So what you're doing is looking at properties that are done up in good condition and you're looking at what they have sold for. Okay, and what you want to do is collect at least 5 to 10 of those. If you can collect 10, that is super, but if you can only get 5, then that's fine. But try and collect as much as you can up to 10, because what you're going to do is work out the average of all of those anyway. So collect 10 of those sold properties within that exact location. So if it's on the road, that's fine. If it has to be within half a mile, so long that it being within half a mile is a similar area to itself, then that's fine. Because there's times where you can go over to the very next road and it's a complete different type of area. So make sure that you are also comparing, if you do have to go outside of your search of being on the road or within half a mile, that you do find another area that's very similar to the one that this house that you are looking at is in. The next thing you could do is go onto Rightmove or Zoopla or On the Market. I tend to like Zoopla or On the Market because there's a lot of agents on those sites, and go and look at the average of sold prices on Zoopla. So the ones that say sold, I like to look at those and see what they sold for. Although all of them may have not sold, or they would typically not have sold for what it's listed for on there, I still like to collect that information, because houses sell usually within 5% of the asking price. So if the asking price is 100, then it would usually sell for around 95. There's usually like a 5% allowance. So, you know, agents, they always kind of inflate the property price so they can hit exactly where they want to sell it at. You want to collate those as well, and that's really useful to know that your property will be going on that price, it will be selling at that price, and you're somewhere in the middle. So once you've collected 10 of your sold land registry comparables, which you can get from Rightmove or the Land Registry website, the other thing would then be to go on Zoopla or Rightmove or On the Market, and then look at what properties have sold for on those sites with the little sold sign, and I'll put a little demonstration of it here so you can see what it is I'm talking about. And that sold sign will be your gauge. If there's some that haven't got any sold sign, do not collect those. Even if they are in good condition, do not collect those. The next thing you want to do is get on the phone, right? Because agents are the experts. They are the experts. They work day in, day out in these locations. And if you've got a particular house that you're interested in, you want to speak to that very agent who's even marketing the house and say, look, this is my plan. What is it going to be worth in good condition? What's the value of this house in good condition? They will tell you a value. It may be overinflated ever so slightly, but at least you have a gauge on what it's about. You can then ask them, tell me a realistic, this is not necessarily quick sale price, but if I want to get rid of this within a month without no delay, how much is that amount? And then they'll tell you more of a realistic figure. And when you're having that conversation with them, you're really pressing for a real figure, not the inflated figure. And believe it or not, this is what surveyors do. This is when you have a mortgage surveyor coming out to look at your house, all that surveyor's doing is looking at what has sold in the area. Some people who are on is it EIG? I forgot the name of the website where you can actually get real up-to-date information on what has sold. Rightmove and Line Registry, they only show you what has sold outside of 3 months. So anything within 3 months that has sold, you won't be able to see that information on Line Registry. But anything further than 3 months and more, you'll be able to access that information. Surveyors can get access to what sold yesterday. So you need that. It would be a lot more beneficial to have. If you want to pay extra and do that, then you can do that as well, and that's very useful and easy to know. But I find that areas don't change hugely within a 3-month period unless something really big has happened. Like now we're in recession, property prices are going up, people are buying, but there always is a little lead up, so you get to see that transition happen gradually over time. Plus, again, speaking to the agents, they'll be able to give you that information. Once you have gone on the phone and speaking to your agents, try and speak to at least 3 to 5 different agents. You want to make sure that the information that you're collecting is accurate, is quite to the T. You don't want to, you want to get rid of any ambiguity. That's another word, oh my God. Ambiguity? Ambiguity. Any uncertainty, any unknowns, you literally are just trying to cross your T's and dot your I's. So that's exactly what you're doing here. Just to tell you a story, there was a gentleman who was selling his property down the road, and he was selling it directly himself. So he had a sign in the window, it said for sale, and just a phone number. So I decided to call that number and we arranged a meeting. I went to the property, I had a walk around, and the property was great. It had a huge back garden, a lovely front garden, a driveway for 2 cars, and it was a good property. I did like it. I could see that it did need work. In the kitchen there had been a leak before because some of the kitchen ceiling had been cut out. The bathroom and the kitchen were both completely outdated, but the condition of the house was quite well. There was a slight damp smell when I walked in, which shows me there is some kind of moisture issues going on, but it had been vacant for a while, so that can possibly be expected, particularly if there's issues with the gutters going on in the property. Overall, I could see the house was in quite a good condition. Once it was cosmetically renovated, I think the house could really get some good value going. They had gone into the loft without permission, so therefore it wasn't certified, and even if it was, they wouldn't have got certification for it to be an additional room because the head height was not high enough for it to be a room. So, it's like this. And that is not enough, so it wouldn't have worked unless you did a dormer extension. Okay, where you square off that back of the roof and made it so you can walk around a little bit more. But apart from that, the property was in good condition and it was okay. I went to go and do my research because what I was looking at the property for was whether I could utilize that property as either a buy to sell or a buy, hold, rent and refinance. So what I done is I got online, and the first thing I done is went online to Rightmove, and I went to their sold house price section and I checked out what prices are worth in that area. Now, in good condition, a house just like that on the same road with a front garden and a back garden. It was a smaller front garden and it didn't have a drive, and they were going for 136 in very good condition. Now, this gentleman here said he would only take 110 minimum. He actually wanted 130, but he would take 110. Now, I know doing renovations, many renovations, that this house needed about a good about £20,000 worth of work. And the reason I even questioned that is because the roof looked as though it needed to be done. When I went upstairs into the loft, there was a very strong smell, and it showed me that the roof definitely needed a little bit of attention, or a lot of bit of attention. And you know, it did need quite a bit of work. So that allowed me to see that 110,000 plus the 20,000 I had looked at brings me up to 130. I haven't even thought about the cost of purchasing and the end strategy, whether it be hold or whether it be selling, because there's costs with holding and there's costs with selling. I hadn't taken those into consideration, and there was no room for any profit on top of that. So what I went back and I told him is that, look, this is a great property, I'm interested, but I'm interested at £90,000. He said absolutely no. And the reason I said 90, taken off 20, because that would have been my equity, or that would have been my margin. My aim would have been to reduce the renovation costs as much as possible. So although I budgeted for 20, I'll try and probably get it in a lot less than that, and then have a contingency, because a lot of times property of this age, they do, you know, there's a lot that comes up. There was a huge back garden that needed to be taken care of, and fences needed to go back up because they had collapsed. So there was quite a lot of work overall, and I could see it coming in at 20,000 easily. So taking off another 20 to allow for a margin was where I was at. I went in at 90 and so forth. But the main thing that I want you to take away from this story is that the due diligence that you do can really help you make decisions about what prices you offer on properties. So you want to make sure that you're being very exhaustive and extensive in your research. You want to make sure you're really looking at it, really going into detail and taking into consideration all aspects when it comes to doing the renovation. That is really how you carry out your due diligence to understand the end value of the property. Now, depending on what it is you're doing, you really want to understand a lot more than just the end value of the property. So if you're planning to sell it or rent it out, you want to understand more about that. So if you're looking to sell to first-time buyers, you want to make sure that first-time buyers are buying in that area, because it's no good having end values and then you don't know who's going to be buying those properties. It might sit on the market for ages. If it's somewhere in the village, like here, we've got loads of villages, we have lots of countryside, and the buy-to-sell strategy could work, but then it will be sitting on the market for a much longer period of time if it's in the village, because there's not many buyers coming along like that. So you want to make sure that if you're hoping to do a quick turnaround, sell it to first-time buyers, you want to make sure that they are buying, and they are buying in that area. Key. Same for lettings. If you're looking to rent out your property, you want to make sure the type of tenant that you want to rent to is in that area, and that they actually want to purchase to rent, not purchase to rent, but they actually want to rent properties like the one that you are selling or renting in that area. And that's quite important. All of that does constitute to due diligence, because it's good knowing the end value, but also knowing who you're going to let that property to is just important. Otherwise, you'll be having a dummy, something sitting down looking good and getting nowhere. The main thing is not to fall prey to desperation of wanting to be an investor and wanting to purchase that property. You may find properties online for 60,000, 70,000, 100,000, which are considered cheap properties. But just because they are listed for that amount, it doesn't mean that they are going to make the perfect strategy work for you. It doesn't mean that they're in a good location. It doesn't mean that there's people waiting, lined up, ready to buy or let this property. This is where you see something and you now have to carry out research on it. You've got to make sure you can tick boxes that this property suits exactly what it is you want to do in order for it to be a good deal. Otherwise, it's just another house on another street that is not going to do anything for you, and it doesn't help, and it wouldn't have made a difference whether you did buy it or whether you didn't buy it. Okay, the key thing is you're investing to make a profit and probably make a change. Maybe you want to offer an accommodation service, not service accommodation, but you want to be a landlord so you can help with the housing crisis, because we're still in a housing crisis, no matter what 5% deposits that they're giving at the moment or enabling at the moment. There's still a housing crisis. So you may want to be a landlord to aid that situation. And if you do, you need to do your due diligence to make sure you're purchasing the right property at the right price for the right tenant or buyer. Do leave your comments down below so I can understand whether or not I taught this information in a way that you can understand it, and hopefully you also found it useful. These videos are really here to help you get started in property and help you make sound, good decisions around investing in property. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in another video. Bye.